that whole process.
And you know what? I never thought about it like that, because that is such a bitch of a play to be your first ever play that you directed.
I was about to say that.
Mad.
It's not
And
even
that's the same with you, wasn't it, Toby?
And I had to like direct these 2 other waitresses just to ensure that I wasn't like overwhelmed or anything like that. And I knew if I had not done directing, I would have just stood in the back and like cried.
And it's like, if you can't even be bothered to do this little first year production that you think you're too good for, where do you think you're gonna go?
And like, I'm supposed to be that one there that's like Kelly's like mirroring or something. And I remember going home to Naomi and I was having a cup of tea and I was like, if Yusuf puts me on stage, I think I'm just gonna run away.
That I walked out of the audience and I just sat in the corridor and cried.
Oh.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
Hello, we are Pursued by a Dragon, which is an international theatre company that is dedicated to telling fantastical stories that explore important themes. And this is our podcast, a weekly podcast that we will be doing, discussing different topics and sometimes having guest appearances, little cameos. And today we are joined by the amazing Effie French. Woo!
Hello.
Do you want to introduce yourself, Effie?
Yes.
Go on then.
I'm Effie. I'm a director, set designer and theatre photographer, and I just finished my 2nd year of studying my theatre arts degree.
Amazing. And me, Kelly and Effie worked together last year on a project that we took to Rome, which was a loose adaptation of the Odyssey by Homer, which is really great. My name is Yusuf. I am the artistic director, Pursued by a Dragon, and I'm a theatre director, producer, writer, all that jazz. Josh.
Hi, I'm occasionally a director, which is why I'm here tentatively. I also act and do lighting design primarily, and various other things should the need you apply for it. That's me done. Toby, you go.
Hi. I'm Toby. I'm a sort of general arty performer type, I suppose, but I do direct from time to time. And for the company, I've worked as assistant director and sort of dramaturg with Yusuf on past productions. It's me.
Yes, Toby is an amazing director. Hire him. I'm gonna hype you up, Toby. If you don't hype yourself, you know.
All right. Okay. Sorry.
Kelly.
Hello, I'm Kelly. And we're laughing already. And I'm a movement director. And I would say I'm a choreographer as well, but in this context, I'm movement director.
Cool. And this context is the topic of directing, which we will be discussing today. I'm gonna open it up by asking a question that has plagued some of us in university for the last few years, and that question is, what is directing?
Why would you ask that?
because it's a question that will never leave us and never leave any directors. And I thought, seeing as we're older and wiser than we were when we started university, you might be better equipped to answer this question to when it was first posed to us in the first term of first year of our training at Middlesex University. So does anyone want to have a stab, or at least what directing is for them personally?
No, apparently.
I think that's the distinction. You go, Josh. You go.
I mean, I can probably tell you about what I wrote in my essay, but I think Toby's going to say something a little bit more interesting than I am. So you take it, please. Take this.
You sure? I doubt
Yes,
it. I'm probably going to let you down now. But I was going to say that's the distinction that's difficult. Is that in a lecture you're asked that question, and you added on a very helpful affix of what does it mean to you, or what does it mean in general. But if you say like what does it mean in general, then you're like, okay, do I write a dictionary definition of what this means, which is even harder because the nature of the question highlights how many different approaches there are to this thing we call directing. So I think it's almost easier to look at individual approaches and then draw commonalities, because I think almost any like blanket definition that you make without looking at that is going to be like, I don't do that. I don't tell people what to do in that strict, specific way. There's always going to be like approaches that aren't quite covered unless you take into account a broad spectrum of opinions on the matter, I think.
I usually like to answer this question by just saying what isn't directing. Because if you ask really broad questions like what's theatre, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to tell you that theatre is not buying your groceries, so that kind of thing. I'm just you can narrow it down, but you can't here is the definitive answer, there you go. It's a role, it's not like a specific function, it's just a role can do more than one thing.
Yeah, I must admit I am quite mean to ask that question, because the answer that I have is that it depends who you are, and it's there's no definition to what directing is. It honestly, it's so varied, and and I've seen directing where it's super collaborative, and the director's a facilitator who just lets the actors create, and I've seen directing where every little action or every bit of line delivery is sort of planned or dictated by the director, and I've come to realize that there isn't what is directing. Everyone is sort of making it up as they go.
I would agree with that.
Me too.
I'd like to ask a question now that vagueness has been kind of covered. So there's obviously a lot of different directing styles that are valid, but are there sort of certain directing styles that you don't agree with? So someone that takes total control the whole way through the process and has the last say on every single thing throughout the entirety of a show's birth to its it's sort of a the question I'm asking. I don't know why I'm trying to explain it more. What direct styles don't you like?
It's a tricky one, because I am a theatre director and I don't often get directed myself, so it's difficult to say. I find it frustrating when in processes where the director takes a complete step back and is facilitating in a way where it is 100% collaborative, in terms of directing where no final decision is made by the director, but rather everyone has to sort of agree as a group. I find that quite frustrating, just because of that can often result in something that is vaguer or something that is messier than if there's someone there to kind of to have a final say or to make a decision. And also if you're acting, you can't always tell how something is read by an audience, and I think that director role comes in really handy then in those cases.
I think something that I don't particularly like are directors that experiment a lot with sort of actors doing method acting. I don't, as an actor, so I know this isn't quite directing, I have this thing where I can just switch on and off as as an actor. I don't see the point of sending my castmates rats in the mail, because that's...
Oh, don't even get me started on that bullshit. Oh my god. Yeah. Anyway,
that kind of thing. I feel like I can study a person from the outside and get a good representation of that through what I can show by just switching on and off. I don't need to spend 20 minutes before a show doing some weird ritual. I don't know. And I don't like facilitating that either, because it means I'm putting pressure on an actor to do something that they might not be comfortable with. Because as a director, I feel naturally you put pressure on actors to do things whenever you're giving them instructions or whatever goes on in the scene. Sure, you might have a script to dictate what's said, but the way in which you want it to be said and how it's performed could be totally like crazy. And if you like have all these sort of workshops where it's putting them in these really sort of vulnerable positions without some sort of guidance or like
absolutely, yeah,
structure, then it can be really, really dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think there's a big thing about consent in the rehearsal room and sort of creating a safe space. And I think, you know, pushing actors to the extreme, I don't know, I think there's just some kind of ethical concerns that I have with that sort of approach. And like going into method acting as well, it comes back to what we talked about in the Theatre's Therapy podcast about having some sort of detachment to make sure that everyone is safe during the process.
I would like to slightly change the topic to something a little bit more lighter. In that, obviously, we all had our beginnings as directors, and usually that's where the most sort of difficult sort of projects you were working on were. Like for me, my first project was Cleanse, which I'll talk about in a bit. But first, I want to open up to the floor as to what your most sort of difficult project was working on.
I have one.
Yeah, go.
So for me, probably the most difficult one was where it was a project where I was taking on a lot of roles, so that I wasn't just like directing it or I was co-directing it, but I was like co-writing it and being like a production manager, and it was just way too much, to the point where I felt like the one thing that I really wanted to do was like co-direct the show and movement direct the show. I felt like that became less of a priority for me because so many other roles took over and took a lot of like my energy and my time. So I felt like I couldn't put my all into times when I was in the room like movement directing, and I wasn't planning or like I wasn't structuring rehearsal to the best of like my ability because literally so many other things took over. But I guess in a way, like for me, that's kind of like a learning curve, you know. Like I know that if a future project came about where I don't know, where I wasn't a movement director, or if I was doing another role, then that would be the role, and then another project would come where I'd be, you know, something else like movement director. But yeah, so I think that was a really difficult one for me. Yeah.
I'm going to mention Cleansed for me because that was the biggest trial by fire I think I've ever experienced in my life. It was the first time I directed. This was in my second year BBD module, and there were no directors in our group at all. They were like, I want to direct and that's it. Or I want to direct, or I wouldn't mind directing or acting. There was just people in my group that were just, I want to act and nothing else. So initially, Pedro offered to direct the project. Pedro being our student, obviously there's a different Pedro that we could be talking about. And what happened was he had another commitment, which meant he actually couldn't do the performance dates. So that meant that we were without a director again. And I kind of just like reluctantly sort of put my hand up and took the role, which meant that like the text was cleansed by Sarah Kane. And for those of you who have read Sarah Kane, you'll know that Sarah Kane loves her violence and her sort of poetic ways of displaying certain content. So I had like my first time as a director going into scenes where there were literal rape scenes, there were scenes of incest, of extreme violence, blood, basically impossible staged sort of stage directions as well. And somehow I didn't cry throughout that whole process.
And you know what? I never thought about it like that because that is such a bitch of a play to be your first ever play that you directed.
I was about to say that.
Mad.
It's not
and
even
that's the same with you, wasn't it, Toby? With,
yeah, but Yeah, well, we did Crave, but I would actually
Yeah.
say that that's not only a killer play. I think some people would actually say that's probably the hardest of all of Sarah Kane's plays. I even think Blasted's a bit easier than Cleansed, and that will be completely open to debate. But the only reason I say that is because there is a progression in Blasted that leads up to a gradual deconstruction of everything. Whereas in the play you were doing, just at random points, fucking awful stuff happens, and then it's like, okay, and now they're outside again and they're talking, and it's like, and now a flower bursts through the floor. Have fun doing that without any props, and like, you know, all that stuff. So I think it's not even that it's just Sarah Kane. It's like that is Sarah Kane at her most Sarah Kane. So it's insane that, I mean, you it's a massive achievement that you did it actually.
Yeah, that's actually amazing. That is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been directing for 5 years, and I think I'd be kind of ready to like approach that text now. But even then, I would hate myself and like have a nightmare. So wow, yeah. It's funny how you say about origins actually, because when I started directing, I had a massive thing. That's still a massive thing now, in the fact that I was really had high levels of social anxiety. And I was incredibly awkward, right? So imagine that, and then being a theatre director with no experience as well, and it's just awful. For the first year, I would just have no confidence, would not be able to like push ideas, not be able to speak to actors. I'd make really awkward jokes. I mean, I still do make really awkward jokes, but these days I only make really awkward jokes to people who know me, so it's not that weird. Whereas I was making awkward jokes with people who didn't know me, and you know, they couldn't tell that I was joking, and it was bad. So, for example, walked into rehearsal, my first ever rehearsal, and the guy was like, yeah, they had the text in their hand, and then I was like, okay, everyone, like, we're gonna do exercise now, or whatever. And then he put the text down, and I was like, did I say you can do that? But as a joke, because I was like, in my head, it made sense, because I was like, haha, I'm directing for the first time, or I'm gonna make a joke that sounds like I'm being like a dictator director. But obviously, that doesn't come across at all. So I just look like a dickhead. But that used to happen all the time. I used to have all the time when I started directing. And I had to overcome like massive confidence issues. I'm surprised that I continued directing, because that first year was bad, really bad.
My first one was kind of similar to what Kelly said about taking on like too many things, because like obviously I'd never directed before, and it was like my first production. The groups I was with, some of them were great, but some of them did not care even a tiny bit. And I was just like, we're meant to have kind of like a few directors to work on it, but it felt like the other,
This is at uni, right?
were not, yeah, felt like some of the other directors didn't want to do it, and I was kind of like, felt like I was in charge of everything, and any issue across the entire production would be a question to me, and I'd be like, I've never done lighting before, I've never directed before, I don't even know what a stage manager is at this point, but cool. And yeah, it was just really like overwhelming, and it completely put me off directing. After that, I was like, I never want to do that shit again. But obviously that's not what it's actually like when you have like a good company and everyone does what they're meant to do.
She's like, I'm never going to do that shit again. 3 months later, directing another project.
Yeah, literally.
I do think there's like a bit of a challenge for people that are introverted who are directors.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like, I feel like as an actor, you can kind of get away with just acting as if you're extroverted. And I feel like you do have to play up with that a little bit when you're a director, being like psyching yourself up to get this project like proper done and all that. So I know I'm quite introverted as a person, but I do have like a, I guess, mask I put on when I'm directing, and it's it's something that I'm still getting used to. I know I'm not like super confident in the directions I give. I do sometimes like ask the actors a lot of questions that I probably shouldn't, because as a director, you don't want to like imply to your actors that you're not totally confident in where you're going or what you're doing, because then it makes them feel less confident in what they're doing, and there's just like a lesser confidence overall in the project. So I guess, like, has anyone else struggled with that kind of feeling?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, 100%. And what's helped me though with that is I've met so many directors now, like loads of directors, big directors, and loads of directors are really awkward and introverted and surprising. Like you wouldn't know, like they're, I've met more awkward directors and more introverted directors than I have met like really outgoing ones, which is crazy. But like every time I meet someone like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're like me. So like if you can do it, I can do it too. And I think, it's one of those things where I think as long as you know what you're doing, right, which comes with experience, and as long as you've got some tools that you can use to direct. It doesn't matter if you're introverted or extroverted, because like we said, there's no specific way to direct. So if you want to just ask questions, that's completely fine. I assisted on the show where the main tool was questions, and like the director didn't tell them what to do, but they discovered it through her questions and stuff like that. And that was really good, really successful production. It's actually Meet at 3503, which is really successful. So yeah, I don't think it's an issue, but I for a long time I did think about that and compare myself to other people who were perhaps more confident and think, oh, can I be a director and have my personality? And at the end of the day, it's a job, right? It's a job, and like anyone can do a specific job if they put their minds to it. And the way you do that job, there's no rules in how you need to do it. So I think it's about finding what's best for you, and trying not to compare yourself to other people as well.
I think it is people management in essence, isn't it? That's kind of what we're hitting at. Like there's only so that you have to have an artistic vision, but it's like what Josh said earlier about if you don't have the ethics in there, and you don't care about the people, then it just becomes kind of a sort of mini dictatorship in a studio. So I think, and yeah, so you need the people management skills. You need to develop them, and I think you need to accept that you're going to get it wrong like 20,000 times before you get it right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially starting out, like I still make loads of mistakes, but every production I do, I make slightly like one fewer mistake, and then it progresses that way. But also, like, everyone's human, and hopefully your company will understand that. It works out better if you build up a company, as in like you work with the same people again and again, or because then there's like a mutual understanding. Like I've in Pursued by Dragon on like our productions, I've like made loads of mistakes, but I've never felt that I've then lost the company because of those mistakes. I feel like they're understanding to that, and I'm understanding to them when like things go wrong, or if anyone screws up, because we're only human at the end of the day, and we're young humans as well, which is the most like mistake making type of human. So I think we just got to be kind to ourselves and just like take it as experience. Every failure is experience that you can learn from and grow from.
And I guess I'll ask the question.
Go for it.
In like, has being a director or training as a director sort of helped you in anything in sort of the world outside of theatre?
Definitely. I think it has increased my confidence massively. When I started directing, I had really bad social anxiety, really lacked confidence, and as I was trying to get more confident in directing, I think simultaneously the directing made me more confident in real life. Also, it's really good for communication skills, teamwork, and like leadership. like the role of director is basically the role of a manager or the role of like team leader, any role in which you know someone leads a group and works with a group of people. So I think it gives you loads of transferable skills, directing.
It's definitely made me a lot better at managing really annoying employees at hospitality. Just because like there's been times where it's been really, really busy, and like I've had loads of cups being thrown at me because I've worked as a barback, nothing particularly extravagant. But basically, it was just this one particular day where we had afternoon tea at like our little bar place, and it was Mean Girls themed. It was a bit kitschy, and there at the end of it, there's always like an apocalypse of just mugs filling the back, and I had to like direct these two other waitresses just to ensure that I wasn't like overwhelmed or anything like that. And I knew if I had not done directing, I would have just stood in the back and like cried or something. And so if it weren't for directing, I would have been shit. But it stopped me from being shit.
That was so eloquent, Josh. Well, but directing, I would have been shit.
I'm not here to deliver a speech. I'm here to talk about directing in a non-serious...
In a accessible way, okay.
Yeah, that's your favourite word.
Anyone?
Oh, that's the thing. Effie, go first. And I have a question. Yes.
No, go on.
Okay, sure. So, as a director, what is the importance of making theatre accessible for your actors?
Wait. Before you say that question, I think Effie was going to answer your first
Yeah,
question.
mine was kind of relevant to before, sorry.
Go, yeah.
Patience. I'm much more of a patient person now than before I did directing.
Nice.
I'm a very impatient person. And I'd get really, really frustrated, being like, no, I just said do it this way, start again, and like get really frustrated. But I think now I'm much more like kind of, they have a lot to think about, a bit more kind of understanding, have a lot more patience with actors.
That's so interesting because I met you after that project. I didn't experience you in that project, and I thought you were really, really chill in the project that we took to Rome. I wouldn't have gotten that you were impatient from that.
In the first project, I think I just reached my absolute peak of stress. That there's no point getting stressed. I'm just going to be chill.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely no point being stressed. I want to have another one. If Toby and Kay don't want to go, about what directing has given you in real life. And the thing that I want to say is I can read people a lot better now in everyday life. In terms of, as a director, my main job when working on text is to determine why characters say the things that they say and do the things that they do. And in really good plays, what they say and what they do is, is brought out by an underlining subtext, like things that the character can't say, right? And we often work out, what is the thing that's not being said? Why did this character do this thing, right? And I think that that's transferred in everyday life when people say things and like situations happen. It's really interesting to be like, what is going on in this person's mind, and blah blah blah, blah. And it feels a bit like a superpower when you can be like, this is the thing that's going on with you, isn't it? I never say that, I just quietly think it. But it feels like a superpower that helps me like speak to people and like be a better person with understanding people.
That's the difference though, because I always think I agree. I think it if you work a lot with people and with lots of different types of people, you just get better at understanding how people work. That's absolutely. But I think it's important what you said, that like you don't abuse the superpower. Yeah. So you don't just become like a psychoanalyst dick
No.
who just like goes up to anyone. It's like, okay, so you had a difficult childhood. I've got it all. That's why you don't want a coffee this morning. It's like, fuck off. Yeah. So I mean, because I've worked with people who are like that, and then like because you're finding something difficult that they're trying to direct you to do, they're like, okay, I think I see what the problem is here, and they analyze what's going on in your head. And I can't speak for everyone.
I hate that. Yeah.
I don't want you to go rummaging in my head. I don't like it in there. I don't want anyone else in there. So it's like, and it annoys me to. I think it's that thing. If you make assumptions about people and you make that quite obvious, it can come across as quite intrusive and offensive. But what you can do, as you're saying, Yusuf, is you can sort of see where someone is going, or maybe make an educated guess about how they're finding a certain activity, and then think, okay, I can make this better for them, or I can make it work for them. Let's try this. And you kind of think, what would they appreciate? And you don't actually have to have that conversation with them. You don't even have to ask like, what's up necessarily. It might be worth asking like, okay, do you want to talk about anything? Is there something in the room that's not working for you? But it doesn't need to go much deeper than that, because it's kind of not your place. But if you've got that ability, you're able to, I think, it always surprised me how easy it is actually to adapt your practice to suit particular people, because I always thought that would be really hard, but actually it is as simple as that. It's like, just observe how they are in the room. It's like, okay, I think they're finding this a bit tricky, or they seem to be removing themselves from this situation. So it's like, okay, why don't we try the opposite of that? And then things are solved. So yeah, it's about knowing the superpower, but not not abusing it, I think.
Yeah. I agree.
I do think there's always times where you do come across just genuinely like really difficult actors, though. I feel like there's probably, everyone has their story of an actor that you did not have a great time with for one reason or another. I would like to, keeping it anonymous, I'd like to just have a little bit of a rant about some of the experiences we had. I saw Effie making a couple of pieces. Maybe we could start with you.
Okay, keeping it anonymous.
Yep.
I had one actor, which was in my first production, who was the most difficult person, not even as an actor, just person that I've ever come across. And just barely turned up to rehearsals, and then when they did turn up to rehearsals, it was like everything had to be about them. They were the center of the production with their 2 lines that they had in the life. And everything was like, I had to have they'd stay later after rehearsal and be like, how was my performance? Do you think I'm going to get into drama school or whatever? And I'm like, no, you're not. Yes, you're great. Can I go home now? It's just like, how do you think you're gonna go anywhere? Because this person would consistently say openly that they thought they were too good for Middlesex University and too good for the course, and they were above the course all the time. And it's like, if you can't even be bothered to do this little first year production that you think you're too good for, where do you think you're gonna go? Like, you have to start somewhere. You can't just be like, I'm amazing, so I'm gonna go straight to the top with no work. It was just really so frustrating to deal with.
I had a similar experience. So what everyone might not know is that I directed Cleanse not once but twice, because I had to basically, some people had to like delay their assessment for Cleansed, so I sort of volunteered to direct those 2 people, and one of those people was quite difficult to work with, in that there was this one scene where Grace, one of the characters, would be wearing clothes of the other actor, and there was this character called Robin, and he'd be wearing the dress that Grace has, so they kind of swap clothes. And this particular actor didn't enjoy wearing a dress, and I'm like, it's what it says in the script, and like, it's just part of the play. It references the dress in the stage directions. And then they're like, I don't think they should wear the dress in scene 7 because, like, I just don't think they would. And I just got the script down. It literally says in scene 7 that he still wears the dress. And then they were just like, I don't get why you're getting so mad about it. I just don't understand. And I'm like, you're the one that's making me mad. Oh, and the faces I would pull to some of the stuff they would be doing, I'd say, you face the wall and do not move, while the other actor has their scene. And they then were just like, sort of, as the scene was going on, they started going like, just watching what was going on. And I was like, so I just started pulling a face like, and one of the other actors just broke character because they just found my facial expressions to what was going on hilarious for some reason. So, oh my God, nothing stresses me out more than like having to control someone, like to not be stupid, or make bad decisions, or just they have a sort of way of being within themselves that you have to remain professional, but you really don't want to be.
Without screaming at them, stop being so stupid!
Yeah.
I once directed a piece for a scratch night, and I was directing an older actor, and he basically said multiple times to me, how, it's just like really difficult to learn the lines. It's like really difficult. I'm like, yeah. I mean, you're an actor though, so hopefully you'll do it, right? It's like, yeah. It's really difficult. I just need to keep doing it. Like, I'm more used to film. Blah, blah. I'm like, okay. So it comes to like 3 days before a performance, and we have a rehearsal for it. And he comes in and he doesn't know any of the lines, right? None of the lines. To the point where we are reading in. You know how you read in lines and you give like the first 3 words? Like, I would read in like the first 3-4 words of a line, and he would say those words back to me, and then stop. He wouldn't know the rest. So what happened was I took him aside and basically like, look, like what's going on with the lines, blah blah blah. And he basically said to me, by Saturday, in a couple of days' time, I'll know them roughly, but I can't promise that I'll know them off by heart. But I can promise I'll give a good estimation of them. At which point, because it was a play that I had written as well, I was like, I don't want you to go on stage not knowing the lines. So what I had to do is had to call the producer of the sketch night and basically ask for me to replace the actor in the piece, and that's what happened. So yeah, that was quite difficult.
Me and Kelly were witness to that particular decision. We weren't like in the room with them. We just saw that we don't often see use of act, like if at all.
But then I stole the show.
Yes, you did. You did. Like, you were really good though. That's the thing.
Yeah, you were really good. I agree.
I know there's an experience that Toby may have had with his one particular project in second year DVD.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
See, I think I know what you're going to ask me about. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want you to obviously drop anyone's names in there, but like,
No.
I think you know what I'm on about.
No, I won't. Well, so if I think what you might be referring to is that myself and one of the other directors, there was a team of 3 directors for this piece. There were complications, and a cast member wasn't able to do the final show. And this was confirmed with about a week to go. We had a show on its feet. It was very, well, it being BVD, which is a module at Middlesex, for any people who haven't been to Middlesex, body voice direction, that's what the module's called. And it is as it sounds. You're focusing on using your body, your voice as a performer, and kind of working in a bare bones space, minimal other aspects, so basic lighting, virtually no props. See, it's just you and the text and the direction you're given. So it's kind of like stripping it all back. And so we were doing Crave by Sarah Kane, which is a great text, and it was actually quite good fun to do in that way. But there are 4 characters, if I remember correctly, which have all got letters for names. So and there is a kind of, they're sort of voices actually. Characters is probably the wrong word, and you can like make the voices have different people saying them as long as there's a consistency. That was kind of our thinking, because we had about, I don't know, 15 people and these 4 voices, so we had to figure out a way. So we did a lot of kind of deciding on how we were going to do that, and essentially we had set groups of people who would each take charge of a voice, and then they moved around the space as kind of one voice, but taking the position to actually talk at different times. But one of the people who was playing as A, I think, wasn't able to do the final performance, and we only found that out about a week before we were supposed to go up on show night. And there was quite a lot of lines. They had a hefty amount of lines, because if I remember correctly, I think A, we only had 3 people or 2 people doing. It was 2 people actually, I think. So so with one person gone, this other person who already had a lot to learn in comparison to everyone else would have had to have learned the rest of the text for A, and not only would that have been a lot of work for them to do, but it would also kind of mess dramaturgically with what we were going for, with like their voices. They don't have to only come from one sole person, and we'd kind of have to rethink exactly like what does that read on stage. So we decided that myself and my co-director Taz would step in and learn the lines between us for the performance, with genuinely, I think it might have been less than a week actually, and we kind of just divvied them up. And then this became really strange, because we were working with our other director Deanna as a team to direct the entire thing, and then for the last week it was like a very different kind of directing, because I was focusing, and Taz was too, on what we were doing on stage, and what it looked like from the inside, not the outside. And actually, yeah, it was a totally different. It was almost like self-direction. It was very weird. And that was, for me, that was an exercise in never being too complacent about what your role is as a director, because I could have completely assumed I was just going to sit back and watch it all happen. And then this situation unfolded, and I remember us kind of having a meeting, and afterwards being like, oh my God, I see where this is going. We're going to have to do something, aren't we? And I really wasn't ready for it at all. But it worked in the end. But
I'm actually grateful that happened, because like you kind of stole your scenes that you were in.
That's very kind.
And you were really good in the show.
Well, I suppose it helped that we had been giving the direction, and so we knew clearly what the idea and the essence of what we were doing was. That probably helped. But it definitely, for me, it's something I always remember. It's like, never be, as a director, personally, I think you should never be afraid to say, I need to take on this role, even if it doesn't look like something you should be doing per your job title. There are always things that people need help with, especially as it gets closer to production and things just happen. So there's a difference between like what was being said at the beginning. I think, Kelly, you were saying about how you can sometimes be lumped with too much from the beginning with production, or the process just slowly, people keep on shifting things onto you. And that's quite different, I think. But at the same time, as a process progresses, again, with all that people management that you have to be doing, I think it's important to see where a job needs doing. And if you're not going to do it yourself, figure out exactly how it's going to be done, and sort it out that way. And sometimes you do have to do it yourself. And it can be a bit freaky.
Or get a really cool assistant director and make him do everything.
I don't know what you're referring to there. Yeah.
So Toby was the assistant director of Feeling Your Parties, a show that we did, and at one point it looked like one of the actors might not be in the show. And I just remember just being with Toby, like, what can we do? Can Kelly do it? No, she can't. She can't do all the shows. And I was like, I only can be you, can it? There's no one else that can be. I'm not doing it. I'm not an actor, and I can't do any movement or anything. So I'm like, Toby, it's gonna have to be you. And for like a day, we kind of prepared ourselves for Toby stepping in.
Can I be honest with you about that? Because we went in the afternoon. So it was actually the first time I'd ever worked with you, Kelly. In the afternoon, and we had a rehearsal, and I was kind of watching what you guys were doing, and because I hadn't been a part of all the proceedings for that show for a long time. I dropped into rehearsals, but I couldn't come to all of them. I was looking at it and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I was like, wait, hang on a second though. I don't even know where this is in the show. And like, I'm supposed to be that one there that's like Kelly's like mirroring or something. And I remember going home to Naomi and I was having a cup of tea and I was like, if Yusuf puts me on stage, I think I'm just going to run away. I don't know what I'm going to do. I would try my best, but it would be sort of improvised movement. I'd sort of be like, oh yeah, okay. And I was so relieved when the actor in question was like, I'm fine now. I could have cried. I was like, oh my God, thank goodness. I would have tried my best, but yeah, that would have been
but if it was a professional production, it would have been the assistant director.
No, it would have. No, exactly. That's why it's important to think like that. Yeah.
If you're an assistant director, always keep an eye on what everyone's doing because you might have to step in.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But praise the Lord that didn't happen there.
Thank goodness. Yeah, it is better that way. Yeah.
Not that you're not great, Toby.
No, it's all right. I don't take any offence to that at all. That's fine.
It would have been a lot to learn and do in 1 week. Because it was we had that discussion on like the Tuesday, and the performance was like the next Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have gone well.
With like this will probably be like the last topic before we wrap up. Just because like we watching your own shows that you've directed, what's that like? Because for me, it's the most. I hate it. I hate watching my own shows. I'd like to direct this towards Effie just so she can get some more stuff thrown her way.
I like it when it goes right. When it goes wrong, that's kind of it really. I really when everything goes as it's meant to go, I'm like, oh, this is amazing, I made this, yes. And then when you're watching things go wrong, it's like can't look and just I hate watching it when it's not
I so agree. Yeah, I can't. There was one performance that I just looked at the ground the whole time because I did that. I just hated how it went. Like certain actors just were not delivering the lines with enough power, or other things weren't going right. There was like one time when someone tripped over someone else's body. It was a bit awkward.
I had one that I walked out of the audience and I just sat in the corridor and cried.
Oh.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
Oh, that's crazy.
Then the next night it was good. What happened there?
Thank God. They'd be really awful if they just did another shit one after you cried. I'm not gonna lie. That'd be like the worst cast ever.
I was so ready for it to be bad. I was sat at the very edge, so I was like, if I need to leave, I'm not climbing over people this time.
This time. Can't get out of the way.
Would they have known you were the director? Are you just like, I'm sorry, I can't look. You're just sort of like talking to them. It's like...
I actually can't. Like, if I've directed something and I'm watching it and it's going badly, I can't do it.
No, I totally empathise. I'm the same. I am the same. Absolutely.
Yeah. I've been quite, I don't know if fortunate's the right word, but I haven't been able to watch a lot of my shows because I've usually operated them as well or done something else on them. I only watched 2 shows. One was Being Lonely at Parties Camden Fringe version, which was a delight. Like I had a good time watching that because I had detached myself enough from the process so that my heart, I wasn't really completely in it, but I still did a decent job. So it wasn't that it didn't matter too much to me if it went wrong. And also had a packed audience. It was summer. It was a really nice time. Had Kelly next to me, who was like banter, was laughing her way through the show. So it's quite good. Yeah, I like watching my shows because my job is over. Either my job's not over and I'm noting it, which is fine, but then eventually on the last performance, the job is over and there's no point really being stressed out about it because there's nothing you can do about it. And also, I've learned to be quite forgiving of myself because I'm hard on myself anyway, but that usually means that the shows that I work on are like quite a good standard. And also, I've seen lots of bad fish out there, so it's like this is not the worst thing that's ever been made. And one time I was involved in the worst performance that I'd ever been involved with, and it was like the most depressing thing where only 3 audience members came, and I just was sedated through that performance.
Like that happened. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to name what the performance was, but yeah.
Of course, yeah. I just didn't know that happened. Like I don't remember you telling me about that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why, like, you've told me in the past when we'd like market is really important, this, that, and the other. Like, maybe that's why you're like, we need to make sure.
No. But this one, I was glad that nobody came. It was that horrendously awful. that horrendously awful. But it wasn't my fault though. It was other people's fault.
Yeah, always. All right. Shall we call it a day there? But before we do, just so we can give appropriate credit to our lovely guest, Effie, today, if you'd like to plug any of your socials, because we know you do a lot of theatre photography as well.
It
and
looks
very
awesome.
good. Yes.
Yeah.
Very good theatre photography at that. If you'd like to, plug yourself there, and we can shove your links in the description and all of that.
Cool. So I only have my Instagram really, which is Effie French Visual or Visuals. I think it's just visual. I don't even know myself.
Shall I look it up?
I think it's just Effie French.
Let me look it up. Wait, hold on. Wait.
Yeah.
For your socials, just type Effie French into Google and that'll probably come up. That's what you can
just put it on the screen, Josh.
I found it now. It's Effie French Visual.
Thank you.
So Effie, it's Effie French Visual, okay? Have you got that?
Effie French Visual, yeah.
Write it down.
You got that. It's good. I'm working on a website, but it doesn't exist.
Ooh.
Awesome.
Excited.
And stuff like that, but I'm trying.
Cool. Right. Let's edit for this week then.
Amazing.
How are we closing this? Do we want to
Should we say thanks to Effie because she's our
Yeah,
guest?
Effie.
So, yeah. Lovely
You
to
have
have you.
been wonderful.
Me on.
all
Of
right?
course.
And we shall see you all next week.
Yes.